Hi, welcome back to the video. Today we're going to be discussing hype matchups for casuals to look forward to by the end of the year, if not next year. Here's my Ilya versus Islam Photoshop. They're facing off. Do you like my Islam Photoshop? He's looking a little bit pale, but I don't know. Just quickly go over for the matchups. Okay, I'm just gonna get this out of the way because I am gonna be going through each division and just showing which are the best hype matchups for each division. And the most obvious are champ fights for each division. It's literally the best of one division going up to fight the best of that division. Like that's there's no need for beef for that fight to be interesting. Like these are extremely, like, I think which champ fight has been made that wasn't hype. I can't think of one. They're all extremely interesting, and we all love watching these fights. There's, if I'm gonna be honest, which is the most hype, I can't tell. These are all equally hype. I don't know if there's one that's extremely hype. If Islam beats JDM, and then there's the Ilya versus Islam fight, which is extremely exciting, as I have as my thumbnail. That is probably the most hype matchup to make right now. But aside from that, the current champs, I don't think there's a really. They're all pretty equally exciting. If not, if you think there's one right now that's super exciting, put it down in the comments below. But for right now, I think these are all pretty even when it comes to hype. Now I'm gonna start off with WMMA because, let's be honest, outside of the title fights, casuals don't really care about WMMA. I'm kind of a casual, so I kind of don't care about WMMA. But anyways, Zhang or versus also if these also the champion fights between the WMMA is also super exciting, as in Zhang versus Valentina or Valentina versus Kayla. If they were to go up from strawweight to flyweight or flyweight to bantamweight, it would be super exciting to see those fights. Let's be honest. So yeah, outside of that, there's no interesting matchups for like hardcore. I mean, not for hardcore, for casual fans. So yeah, let's quickly go over to the next one. Flyweight. Now, there's only one interesting matchup at flyweight, which is Pantoja versus Van. Flyweight is pretty dead. Like casuals don't really like flyweight in general, so there's that. And also, Van has been gaining a big following throughout his fight. He turned to a huge name in 2025. He's fought like, how many times has he fought this year? Probably like 2 or 3 times. I think he only fought 2 times this year, but he fought like 4 times last year. So he's been very active. So he's been gaining a lot of followers like in a short amount of time, and he's been reviving the flyweight basically. Like Pantoja is a big name as well. He is a very dominant champ, and also people have been discrediting him because they really haven't been mentioning Pantoja for breaking also the 35-year-old curse. They only been mentioning Volk as doing that. So they're like people don't really care about Pantoja at all. But Van has been reviving this flyweight fight, this flyweight division, and that is, I think it hasn't been. I mean, it's been confirmed by MMA posts, but it hasn't been confirmed by the but officially by the UFC yet. So there's that. So that's why I included it. But outside of that, there's really no other interesting matchup. There's Manel Cape, but Manel Cape isn't still, like, he himself hasn't been getting. He has like 0 wins over the top 6, like the guys above him. He has 0 wins against these guys, so he himself isn't. Right now, he doesn't. There's no hype matchup for him to look forward to for right now. I mean, especially because Brandon Royval has been losing. Ursig is another big name, and he's been losing. He got a win at bantamweight as well, so there's that. And all these, like, let's be honest, flyweight is pretty dead when it comes to like interesting, big name, fresh matchups. Now bantamweight, aside of title fights, Merab has fought everybody, and then he's also gonna be fighting Corey, and that, let's be honest, that itself isn't really a big matchup. Merab, and also the Pantoja, Merab, I already explained the whole champ thing. I'm not gonna be listing them here in each division. So there's that. The only interesting fight outside of the for right now bantamweight, outside of the champ fight, is Umar versus Peter Yan. Like, this is literally Ilya versus Islam at bantamweight. Like, it's literally the Dagestani kickboxer with high level grappling versus the. I mean, he's Russian, but Ilya is Russian adjacent boxer with with the high level grappling as well. So literally, these are the exact same. This is literally bantamweight Walmart version Ilya versus Islam. Don't get me wrong. This is extremely hype and like not Walmart when I like as in trash. Like just Walmart relative to Ilya versus Islam. So yeah, I'm like casuals are gonna be looking forward for this fight if it does happen. I don't know if it's been confirmed, but I don't know if it's been signed yet, but it's been rumored recently for this fight to happen. So outside of that, there's no other interesting matchup. Like bantamweight, it was also been like Sean O'Malley is the big name, but let's be honest, Sean O'Malley losing twice hurt his hype a lot. Like it literally took a bunch of his hype away from the casual audience. You know, if you can give Sean O'Malley like not even a Song Yudong, maybe a Davidson for Figueiredo is a super hype matchup, but I don't see it. For right now, Umar versus Peter Yan is the only extremely exciting matchup to make outside of the champ fight. Now at featherweight, you are only seeing one man right now, and you're questioning yourself, why is there no matchup right now? Why don't you have him alongside someone else? Well, that's because at featherweight, let's be honest, Volkanovski winning the title was big and exciting especially if you're a Volk fan. And he is a casual name. He is a name, like a big name for casuals. But let's be honest, him winning the title kind of hurt the division when it comes to like hype matchups. Especially because he himself is like, let's be honest, this is an old Volk. It's obvious he is out of his prime. So it's gonna be how good does a old Volk do against the next the next guard, and he's been doing pretty good. He beat Diego, but actually, am I tripping? Is Volk not that hype? Maybe Volk is pretty hype. Now that I think about it. But we're talking about like a big casual audience. John Silva is gonna be carrying this division, and what I mean by that is you put John Silva against you put John Silva against any of these people, it's a big name fight already. Like John Silva versus Brian Ortega, John Silva versus Arnold Allen, John Silva versus Aljamain, and Lauron, Jair, Diego. You put him against everybody here, it's a big name. John Silva is carrying the whole division. If you put John Silva versus Alexander Volkanovski, that's a huge fight. So you know that's what I mean by John Silva himself is the big hype matchup. He like Volkanovski against these other guys is not gonna be as big as John Silva. Like let's be honest, Alexander Volkanovski versus Mazar Evloev or versus a rematch versus Jair or Leron Murphy is not gonna be as big as John Silva versus any other guy here. And that's what I mean by John Silva is the hype matchup, I guess you can say, for featherweight. Now lightweight has the most narratives at lightweight that are extremely interesting, especially for casuals. And funny enough, they all kind of tie into to Ilya, because Ilya versus Islam is literally the spot for the number one like pound for pound spot. Ilya versus Max was he had the best performance against Ilya, especially against Volk and Charles. He had the best performance. And then this is Max at 155, where he hits harder, he's heavier. He KO'd at this division. He KO'd Justin Gaethje. He dropped Dustin Poirier in this division. So it's gonna be a really interesting rematch if and Max gets another fight and wins it, and then gets the title fight against Ilya. So there's that really interesting matchup between those two. And then the Ilya versus Paddy. There's really it's self-explanatory. From the press conference to the backstage fight they had. I don't know. It wasn't really a fight, but there was that scuffle. So there's that narrative, and then there's also this is the weakest narrative, which is Ilya versus Arman, where it's like, is Islam's wrestling and good enough to withstand Arman's wrestling and KO Arman? There's that like narrative, and they also have been having that social media back and forth, petty arguments and whatever. But there's that. It is an interesting matchup for casuals. I mean, Ilya himself is a casual name, so he himself is carrying. He's like a John Silva, where he kind of carries the whole division outside of Islam. So there's that. So, and also for the last part of contender fights, you can literally put Paddy versus Max or Max versus Arman or Paddy versus Arman. Like just put the 3 names in a hat and just take out whichever, you get yourself a really big fight name, like big name fight for casuals. So there's that. So yeah. And outside of that, there's really no other interesting matchups. Dan Hooker against these other guys, or who else? I don't know. This Charles Oliveira. He himself is fighting. I forgot who he's fighting. I think he's fighting. Where is that little dude? I think he's fighting Fizia, right? He's fighting that dude. We're not getting the Max versus Charles anytime soon. Max Holloway has kind of been out of the picture for right now. He said he pulled out. I mean, he got injured. Michael Chandler has been losing a lot. Okay, so there's Rufi versus Benoit Saint Denis. That one's coming up next. If Rufi destroys Benoit, then I guess you can put Rufi as a huge name matchup for like a contender. But for right now, it's too much. There's still too much questioning for Rufi to even know if he's like the real deal. So for right now, I'm not gonna include him for a lightweight. So let's go on to the next division. Okay, at 170 welterweight, we obviously got the title fight for JDM versus Islam. Very interesting matchup. It hasn't been. I mean, it is pretty obvious this is the next matchup that's gonna come up. It hasn't been officially confirmed by the UFC to this day. August 28th hasn't been officially confirmed. Oh no, it has been officially confirmed. I'm stupid, right? Or has it not? I don't even know. Anyways, this is super interesting. It's literally the number 1 contender going up to fight the best at 170. So, or the champ at 170. So there's that. There's a really interesting matchup. And then there's a contender fight between Usman versus Belal. We all know about the podcast, like scuffle they had, where Belal went on to Usman's podcast, and then I think they had a fight or something, or an argument. So the upload, it wasn't the podcast didn't get uploaded. So there's an interesting backstory. They have that beef between each other. You know, there's that at welterweight. And then we got Carlos Prates versus Leon Edwards. It's a striker versus striker. Prates has a big following himself. Leon Edwards had a big following, but they kind of magically disappeared when Edwards has been 2 losing streak. So, but anyways, I do think this is an interesting matchup because it's Carlos Prates versus a former champ who himself is a very high level technical striker. So it's gonna be really interesting. There's no MVP here because I think, in my opinion, MVP should stay at 180. At 185, he should stay there. I don't think he should come down. It's pretty useless. He's pretty old. He should be having title inspiration. So I'm gonna be saving MVP for a middleweight. All right, so now we're at middleweight, 185 title fight. Interesting matchups. Let's be honest. Imavov and Kyle are fighting for the number 1 title, are fighting for the title spot. Title contending fight. Both of those fighters are boring. Nobody, let's be honest. Do people really care about Kyle or Imavov? Let's be honest. Do people really care about them? I don't think so. RDR and Fluffy are not even are not gonna get the title fight next, but they already have a bigger following and are more in the are more in the casual stratosphere than Kyle and Imavov. So I'm just gonna say I think Kyle and Imavov both lose to Khamzat. So let's just get those fights out of the way. And I'm just gonna be mentioning Khamzat versus RDR, and Sophie. They're both the same kind of type of style matchup where it's just Khamzat is a grappler, so he's going up against other grapplers, as in RDR or Fluffy. You know, RDR has got that goofy DDP style of striking, and he's more of a grappler than DDP. He has also there's that narrative where RDR and Khamzat have trained before. They have trained with each other, so there's that interesting matchup. And then there's Fluffy is also a high level grappler with a gas tank, meaning even if Khamzat takes down both of these guys, how well do they do? I'm pretty sure they're not gonna get into crucifix as in the same way DDP was. So it's gonna be really interesting how they do on the ground, and then what they do after that, because I'm pretty sure they're gonna do way more better than DDP on the ground. And one has a gas tank and the other one has a really goofy style. So it's gonna be really interesting to see a matchup against Khamzat, and also Khamzat is a big casual name. So those two matchups, Khamzat versus RDR and Khamzat versus Fluffy, is gonna be really big name fights. And then also we got the obvious contender fight between RDR versus DDP. You know, people. You know, the memes. You know, these are the. You know, even DDP went into the got into the inside jokes of him saying, "Oh, he's gonna win by falling anvil or whatever." You know, he also played into the jokes. So there's that. And then we got ring fights between, not contender fights, ring fights between Israel Adesanya versus MVP, or Israel Adesanya versus Sean Strickland 2, or MVP versus Sean Strickland. I don't think people are talking about it. Like, MVP could fight Sean Strickland, and that could be a really interesting matchup, you know, because it's Sean Strickland's defensive boxing style versus MVP's fencing karate style. So it's gonna be really interesting how that fight goes. Oh, maybe I don't know. It'll be interesting to see those two a matchup between these three fights. You know, the same way as Max versus Armin versus Patty. You know, it's gonna be the same, like, three-way fight. Interesting matchups you can do for these three fighters that are big names for casuals. But yeah, that's it for middleweight. Now light heavyweight, the second last division, which is really interesting. Title fights. Now, I split the title fights into two, and this is because, what's his name? Ankalaev and Alex Pereira are going to be fighting, are the next title fight coming up for the UFC schedule. So whoever wins, I'm just putting, if Ankalaev wins the rematch, this is the matchups for him that are super interesting. And if Alex Pereira wins the rematch, this is the interesting matchups for him next. So if Ankalaev wins, interesting matchup is okay, let's be honest. Okay, let's just start off by contender fight. Actually, let me just start off by my contender fight. If Dominic wins, he's obviously gonna get the title fight. So either or, it's a freebie for both Alex and Ankalaev for having a huge name fight, because this is the guy to have the who's known to win against John Jones. I mean, I think he won obviously as well. Like, I'm Mexican American, that bias is already there. Even if I think if he lost or won. I think Dominic Reyes, he is gonna be the narrative of, you know, this is the guy that beat John Jones. You know, on paper he lost, but we all know he won. You know, there's that narrative, and he's gonna have a second chance against the current champ to see how well he does. That's a super interesting hype matchup. And then, what if Carlos Ulberg wins? He might have to fight another fight, and they might give him Jiri, because Jiri as well needs another fight. I mean, also it's Jiri. How can you not have Jiri in a video about hype casual matchups? Like, that'll be crazy. So there's Jiri versus Carlos Ulberg. Jiri is a fight or die type of fighter, as in I don't think he has had a decision in a long time. Like, look at his resume. Jiri hasn't had he's either a finish or get finished type of fighter. So, and Carlos Ulberg has been winning by decisions a lot against older fighters. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how Carlos does against Jiri, you know, a fighter that kills you or gets killed. So it's gonna be really interesting, big name matchup. And it's Jiri, like, it's Jiri. We all love Jiri. So let's start off by saying if Ankalaev wins, Dominic Reyes, I already explained that one, and then Jiri. That's gonna be a super high matchup. Jiri, having a fresh matchup, not having to rematch Alex Pereira for the third time. There's gonna be a fresh matchup going up against Ankalaev for the title. There's gonna be a really big matchup if Ankalaev wins and then defends it against Jiri. Big hype matchup to see how well he does against Jiri's awkward, weird switch stance style, the karate style. So there's that. And if Alex Pereira wins, there's the Dominic Reyes, like as I explained, and then Ulberg, as in Ulberg is literally he trains in the same gym as Israel Adesanya, the city kickboxing. So there's that, and also Alex Pereira as well as a high level kickboxer. So let's see how well he does against someone like that. Let's see how well does Carlos Ulberg after beating Dominic Reyes and then after beating Jiri, how well he does against the champ Alex Pereira in a kickboxing fight. Let's see how well can he withstand Alex Pereira's power and beat Alex Pereira in a more technical fight. So I say it was a really interesting matchup. And also, you know, there's the Israel Adesanya Association. So that's why I have Alex Pereira versus Carlos as a big casual hype matchup. Now, like I said, champ fights, aside of, like, in heavyweight, aside Ankalaev going up to fight Tom Aspinall. There's no interesting matchups for Aspinall. Let's be honest. Aspinall versus Almeida, that's more of a hardcore matchup. You know, casuals don't really care about grappling, especially Almeida. Or let's say Walker's brother. Oh, I forget his name. Walker's brother. Where is he? Walter Walker. He himself is more of a hardcore. He's still more in the hardcore area of UFC fans. He's still not big. Still building his way up. Talashin would have been more interesting if he beat Derek Lewis, but we all know what happened in that fight. It wasn't too long ago, that fight. Well, Cortez would have been an interesting fight if he beat Sergey, but Sergey beat him. So there's, the interesting prospects have been losing. So it's been killing the heavyweight division. Those losses. So that's what I mean. There's only one interesting fight aside from the champ fight, which is if you bring back Ngannou for a title fight against Aspinall. There's no other interesting fight. I mean, I guess the Tom Aspinall versus Gane is interesting, but that's gonna happen very soon. So, there's really no point to put it in this video. So there's that. So I mean, heavyweight right now is extremely dead. Aspinall, he himself is a very interesting fighter. He is a very fun fighter to watch, but there's not much to see of him. And also, we all know he's gonna beat everybody. So there's that. So just give him Ngannou for heavyweight. There's nobody else aside from the Ankalaev. There's that. So yeah, so those are all my hype casual matchups to look forward to. Ilya versus Islam is the biggest hype casual matchup that you can make in the UFC. I mean, like I said, we're all casuals at heart, so we all would love to see this fight, not just casuals. So there's that. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and goodbye.